Forum Business Incorporated. Here's what we have prepared for you today. It's closer ties, more working relationship for Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea as President Bola Tinubu signs a memorandum of understanding on pipeline gas and others. And in Nigeria, for the very first time in 19 months, we see inflation tapers 33.4% for the month of July. And Zimbabwe border management goes virtual online. That's what they're doing to make it easier to manage. Good afternoon, welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start from the global oil space. Prices rose on Thursday and is supported by optimism that potentially United States interest rate cuts will begin in September. And also there's the fuel consumption concerns that came yesterday, but it's going slower now, and global demand has kept gains. Taking a look at the numbers, we see that for Brent, it's in the green, 0.2%, $79.95 a barrel. WTI of the United States went up higher, 0.3%, $77.21 a barrel. Both benchmarks fell more than 1% on Wednesday after United States crude inventories rose unexpectedly on easing worries about a wider Middle East conflict. U.S. consumer prices rose moderately in July, and the annual increase in inflation slowed to below 3%. Now, for the very first time in 3.5 years. And closely related to that, still in the global space, is metals. Gold prices edged up on Thursday after 1% decline in the previous session following inflation data that dampened hopes for a larger September U.S. rate cut, while the focus now shifts to retail sales data, which is expected. So we look at the numbers. Beginning from platinum right there, we see a reverse of what we had yesterday. It's up 0.9%, $927.51 and for an ounce. And then palladium is slightly up, also 0.1% at $936.25. Gold, we see there 0.2% in the green, $2,452.83. And then we have spot gold that was also up, as well as U.S. gold that went up about 0.4%. Spot silver was also in the green, gained 0.2%, $27.65. Platinum rose 0.9% to $927.51. And palladium, we saw right there, edged higher. Well, before we give you details of that inflation, let's tell you about the CBN PMI. Even though we did tell you that earlier today, just days after the statement that they were going to start reintroduce the macroeconomic data, we saw the numbers actually come right there. Yeah, we could have that. I'm sure we'll have that soon. So we saw the PMI formed from the Central Bank of Nigeria was released. There you have it for the services sector. That's the only green that we have when it comes to the sectors. Industrial was, however, down. We know anything below 50 points is negative, shows there's retraction. So industry is down 48.3%. Agriculture is also down, not up to 50%. We see there. We'll see for the composites. If we could have that slide right there for the composite. There you have a composite, which is a combination of output, new orders, employment, and raw materials. All of this make up the composite, average at 49.7 points. Only outputs as well as raw materials was at 50. But we saw new orders dropped, and as well as employment, which was at 48.7%. All right, now we're still talking about macroeconomic data now, and we saw the CEO data also coming out yesterday, and to see if well, there's a CEO data also that also shows that CEO confidence for manufacturers is also not looking so good at this time from Nigeria. For that's composed by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and it's showing that things may not be looking so good. All right, now we'll continue doing business with manufacturers. The Controller General of the Nigerian Customs Service, Mr. Bashir Adeniyi, said that relevant stakeholders are working to propose a solution to the forex volatility, which is negatively impacting businesses in the country. Mr. Adeniyi was speaking at the Trade Facilitation and Revenue Generation public lecture organized by Manufacturers Association of Nigeria in Lagos. It's a public lecture by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria as they turn their attention to trade facilitation and revenue generation with a focus on the option for an import-dependent economy. Conversations here centered around the Nigeria Customs Service, their intervention before now, and the need for even more interventions.
One, which is the recent one, is suspension of price verification system introduced by the CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria. Restoration of some critical raw materials in the list of 41 items restricted for forex. Although we will have lost some trick along the line, but we should have to appreciate this because it was one of the efforts that we made. Are changing.
The Controller General of Customs, Bashir Adeniyi, connects with some of the frustrations of the manufacturers.
This year alone, in the first quarter, these rates changed 28 times. It was even more alarming in the second quarter. It changed 42 times. So sometimes you wake up in the morning with one rate, before the close of business, it has changed. I've had engagement with the governor of Central Bank, and he's also concerned that it is no longer sustainable for us to keep this kind of regime. If we bring all the stakeholders together, manufacturers, captains of industries, the banks, customs, we may be able to achieve a perfect handshake between the fiscal requirements and the what is happening in the monetary environments.
Challenges.
However, some of the challenges are beyond the customs.
A container load from Lagos going to Amuwo-Odofin, you pay the same value for a container load from Apapa to Ibadan. At every point, the Agbero stopped and demanded for money. We appeal to government to help us look into this because it's a great embarrassment. It's added more cost to our production activities.
Conversations and plans initiated here is expected to climax at the Manufacturers 2024 Annual General Meeting planned for October. All right, now let's look at other issues. One of that is a major one. A couple of minutes before I came on air, we did see the numbers from the NBS inflation number, and we see that Nigeria's headline inflation has decreased. I mean, this is the biggest news in 19 months, the first time to 33.40, and that number is for July. It came from 34.19. I don't think I saw a lot of forecasts that there will be a drop in inflation number. Of course, this marks the very first decline since December 2022, when it dropped to 21.34. And this morning we did talk about this. Expectation is that for August, it will drop even further because of the harvest season, as well as the beginning of the import-free period, which the federal government is implementing now. According to the report, this is a decrease of 0.79% in July 2024. That's year on year, I mean month on month compared to June 2024. But on a year on year basis, it's a 9.32 percentage points higher than what we had in July 2023. So that's year on year, it's still high, but month on month, we see there's a depreciation. Additionally, on a month on month basis, the headline inflation in July was 2.28, slightly lower than the 2.31 recorded in June. Of course, food and beverages still leading, contributing 17.30% to the inflation numbers at this time. Now, before now, the federal government has made its announcement and intention to start a domestic Eurobond available as another way of raising revenue, and that is what they're doing even as we speak. Right here in Lagos, that event is going on where the Debt Management Office, on behalf of the federal government, has launched the issuance of the first series of that $500 million domestic bond, open to both residents and Nigerians in diaspora. They say the bond offer opens August 19 and is a 5-year bond with a minimum subscription of $10,000 and is tax exempt. Wonderful. At the launch, which is ongoing as we speak, hybrid roadshow for the bond, which has in attendance the Minister of Finance, we see there, coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu, the DG of DMO, the GMD of NGX, Mr. Temiko Paula, as well as other stakeholders in the Nigerian financial sector. You can be sure we'll give you more details of that event, and perhaps how you can participate in this very first domestic U.S. bond in Nigeria. I think it's the first in Africa also, so good news for us in Nigeria. Let's talk about that and some other issues in the financial sector now with the Managing Director of Greenhouse Business Diagnostic and Analytics Limited, Mr. Rotimi Fakejo. Joins us virtually now. Mr. Fakejo, do I say congratulations to Nigeria, this very first Eurobond, domestic Eurobond, and we do hope that it will meet the need for which it has been created.
Well, it's a good news, and just as you have said, it is expected that there will be proper implementation of what the Eurobond would be, or what it has been proposed to be used for, because that is what we've had in time past, whereby to be designated for A, and at the end of the day, we will see implementation in that direction. So there is a lot of expectation concerning this very government. The rating is very high from the beginning. That is the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and we hope that he will be the one that will do the turnaround that we'll be waiting for. And it won't be business as usual as we've always had in the past.
Yeah, so of course this speaks to investor sentiment. We're trying to get investors this time around in dollars. So of course, I think at first there was the notion that it was going to be only for Nigerians in diaspora, but now we know it's also open to Nigerians in the country. But I mean, all of this will speak to the confidence that investors have in the federal government, in the system generally, or of the country. That, I guess, will gauge the decision or the outcome of this move.
Well, I think the investors have no reason to for any fear at all, because the default rate for any government issued bond is almost zero, at least for a country that is not at war. And Nigeria is not at war, so investors have a very good leeway to be able to participate in this offer. And I believe that the returns is robust enough to bring major attractions. And I want to believe that the offer will be fully subscribed, if not oversubscribed, by the time it will be concluded.
I wonder if we can say the same, Mr. Fakejo, about what's going on between FBNH, FBN Holdings and Barbican, and then there's the central bank, and all of that. And, some investors seem to be expressing some kind of concern. Is this affecting, I know the matter has been on for a while, and now the central bank is party to it. Is this affecting investor sentiment in any way? We did see FBN Holding, I think yesterday, there was a drop in the price, in the share price. Can we say all of this, because of course investors make decisions based on news and rumors, whichever is available. Is it affecting investor sentiment in any way?
Well, for FBN Holdings, it's been a what I would call a long-term battle in the board of the bank. And we've seen various things playing out in different ways. I've very fully well that the total number of shares in issue for FBN Holdings is about 35.99 billion. And the substantial shareholding is about 20% of that figure. And we know that there are two contenders in this case, which is Femi Otedola, which owns about 11.67%, and also Barbican Capital Limited, which owns about 8.67%. And I think with the combination, the major issue that has been there is that Barbican Capital claims or is laying claim to holding about 14.65%, which translates to about 5.26 billion. But only 3.110 billion is verified by the CBN. And I think with this verification, the coast is already clear of who owns what. And I believe that as it stands, this has impacted on that bank in a number of ways. Most other banks have already, every other bank has already concluded their AGM. They've taken decisions, and those decisions are being implemented. Here is ABN Holdings, still battling, postponing AGM from this month to early next month. And I believe that that definitely is not in the interest of shareholders. Shareholders have been denied their dividend, and at the same time, too, the bank is not able to implement major decisions vis-a-vis the regulatory policy concerning increase in share capital. And with the way it is, ABN Holdings is definitely suffering some setback, and investors are not really happy about it. We believe things can get better. We've seen a lot of stability under the chairmanship of Femi Odutodala in the ABN Holdings. And we believe that this should be given more room, more chance for him to be able to at least execute major decisions with other board members in the holding company. So I think the earlier the better. The CBN wields the big stick, and also SEC has to be upstanding in this because they have a major role to play. So I expect that there should be a lot of collaboration between the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Central Bank of Nigeria in actually nipping in bud problems like this in the past. But it is high time that this problem is brought to its knees, and the solution will definitely impact on both the bank and also the shareholders and investors' perspective in that bank.
So I think the worrying thing here, Mr. Faka-Ejo, is, you did say, it's time for the CBN to wield the big stick, but they are now a party joint in the issue. So, isn't that a more worrying situation, having the regulator also joined in the matter? Hello, Mr. Faka-Ejo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I was saying that now that the CBN is also joined in the matter, doesn't it make it a more worrying situation for especially shareholders?
The Barbican Capital.
Please go ahead, Mr. Faka-Ejo, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. Barbican Capital is laying claim to 5.26 billion shares, whereas the verifiable figure is 3.110. And I think this is long overdue but to be brought to order. This is not shareholding that is very new. We see Barbican Capital is bringing its shareholders, said they were consolidating what they hold in different names. And I think in verifying was these shares were they paid for, the only one that had good final verification is a 3.110 billion shares. And I think SEC should wade into this situation vis-a-vis NGX, and they can always cross-check everything through the Central Securities Clearance System. So I believe strongly that this problem is not anything difficult, and it has to be solved once and for all. And if that is done, to be in the best interest of the shareholders who have been denied their dividend and have been long waiting for this. So I think it is long overdue that will bring this, we need this in the board.
All right, Mr. Faka-Ejo, thank you so much. We certainly do hope that this is sorted out, so there'll be stability in the banking sector. Mr. Faka-Ejo is the Managing Director of Greenhouse Business Diagnostic and Analytics Limited. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we have more market conversation, and you'll be having it with me. So let's do it after the break. It's time to head to the markets, and it's with John Mekwa. All right, let's do intraday numbers now. We see the NGX is down again this afternoon, 0.17%. No recovery. Even in the past days, we've been seeing recovery at intraday. Unfortunately, this is a further drop from what we had yesterday, 97,079.50. Before we head to South Africa, let's talk to Abiodun Adedotun now, find out what's going on in the market. Abiodun, good afternoon. What's going on in the market? I thought with all of the recapitalization efforts and jingles going on that the banks would be surging at least to hold the market in the green for this period.
Okay, good afternoon. It's actually a very, very quiet day today in the market. We witnessed the close of two offers, that is in GTCO and Fidelity on Monday. I believe there's a lot of collision going on right now to see how much has been raised. The MD of Fidelity came out to say it was oversubscribed. And of course, we would expect GTCO to get as much as they have envisaged. Access are to extend its own. The market is actually really very well chilled right now. There's a lot going on the mind of investor, and coupled with the fact that it's summertime, quite a number of people are on holidays and things like that. So it's also affecting the pace of the market.
So what's also happening to the oil and gas? So we saw a recovery from last week, and I think the first two trading sessions for this week, or just the first one. But now we've seen it's back in the red. What's happening there? It's mostly O&O and Japan Gold.
Yes, it's mostly O&O, and of course, O&O has attracted a lot of interest since the news about Ajib came out. Of course, investors are expecting that the company is going to turn around its fortune after many years in hiatus. Investors are hopeful that the business is going to do well. So, but at every peak, you also have to have a dip. So I think the stock really rallied beyond anybody's imagination. So this is just a mere correction and profit-taking activity. It's expected, and it's not so surprising.
So now that we see this attractive, the first domestic Eurobond, do we see a threat? Do we see investors turning the way of fixed income, for instance, at the cost of the stock market?
Not really. We not expect investors to look away from the stock market right now, because practically the stock market is not really priced where it should be. The businesses are bigger by far, and that's inflationary driven, and of course the impact of the depreciation of the currency. So on the fixed income side, with the numbers, the readings on inflation that shows that inflation is down about 70 basis points month on month, you would expect at the next policy meeting, policymakers will be looking carefully and thinking about how they'll bring interest rate down. Businesses are crying currently, so and it's not even sustainable, the current rate of interest rate. So you expect interest rate direction to fall, and you'd expect some of these monies to get back into equities.
Yeah, well, we look forward to when we would hear that there's actually interest rate cuts in Nigeria. But thank you so much, Abiodun Adedotun, for your time this afternoon.
You're welcome.
All right, now let's look at, I think we were at South Africa to look at the numbers. The numbers for South Africa, that would be good. Thank you so much. So South Africa, we see at intradays in the green, 0.57% at 81,869. We look at other markets on the continent. Egypt is in the red at 0.2%, 29,509.30. Kenya closed yesterday marginally up 0.03%. Now let's leave Africa and see other parts there in the Middle East. It's mixed for the Middle East. At intraday, 0.09%, 9,217.32. Dubai is on the flip side, 0.09% at 4,217. Saudi and Qatar are looking good at intraday, 0.59 for Saudi Arabia and 0.32 for Qatar. Now we go to Asia. We know, of course, these are market movers, and they closely follow sentiment around the United States. So, of course, we can expect that good numbers from the CPI, US CPI yesterday will flow here. So we see the Nikkei in the green, really green, 0.78%. Kospi also in the green. Hang Seng marginally down, 0.02%, 17,109. Shanghai and in Australia, all in the green. We can expect that this is that positive sentiment heading towards what might be an interest rate cut in September by the Fed in the United States, and we know what impact that will have. Now, talking about the United States, let's go there and see the numbers, features we can expect. I mean, predictable, yes, at this time. Dow Jones, 0.23% in the green. S&P 500, the NASDAQ looking green right there comfortably at this time. If we can have the other numbers. Do we have them? All right, so that's it for the market. Now, let's go to the UK. Yesterday, we had not so good news because we had the inflation number that was a bit higher than expected. But guess what? They had the UK, their GDP today for the second quarter, and it went up 0.6%. But unchanged in June. We'll talk about that with Juliana in a couple of minutes now. Before we get there, now let's get to Germany, where they have a company they call Rheinmetall, and it's seen one of the most spectacular stock market rallies that could be imagined. And the defense contractors business is. Do we say it's because of the war going on in Ukraine right there, going strong ever since Russia started its war in Ukraine? So, of course, we know that the war industry is also thriving because of that unfortunate incident going on in Ukraine. And now Ukraine has taken the battle to Russia. But let's have Lars now come and tell us more about this company, Rheinmetall. Lars, what's going on? They seem to be profiting from an unfortunate situation.
Thanks for having me, Ini. Let's look at some numbers first. And I want to point out, I'm not usually one to look at share prices to assess a company and how their business is doing, because markets are not always a reliable indicator for what's really going on. Here, however, it most certainly is. Rheinmetall shares saw a huge jump back in February of 2022. That is when Russian troops marched into Ukraine, when Putin started a war that at the time many thought could likely be resolved with some international involvement. Well, it wasn't resolved. Quite to the contrary, Russia's aggression is ongoing, and so is Ukraine's defense. And Germany and other countries are helping out with tanks, air defense systems, and other products. Much of them are made by Rheinmetall. Now, shares of Rheinmetall have been up 500% since the war started. They're up over 100% just over the past 12 months. And Rheinmetall is looking to capitalize on its growth and the billions they have incoming. One strategy is, of course, to expand. The German company says it's acquiring Lock Performance. That is a US defense specialist. They're paying 950 million euros, and that's almost $1 billion.
So maybe you should tell us more why at this time we're having this conversation about this company, Rheinmetall.
Well, it's a pretty obvious match. First of all, the company makes powertrain systems as well as entire platforms for wheeled and tracked vehicles, including tanks. It has customers in the military, but also the construction and agriculture sectors. But what is probably most important, it's an American firm. It's headquartered in Michigan, and it can open new doors into the Pentagon. Rheinmetall is hoping to get more orders from the U.S. military, and it most certainly helps to have a major presence in the U.S., including manufacturing, because that is something the Pentagon is always looking for. There's even two programs the company is betting on right now, a $45 billion deal for a new generation of infantry tanks, for which Lock Performance, a takeover target, is one of two companies in the running. There's also a $16 billion deal on the table for 40,000 military trucks.
All right, Lars, thank you so much. Let's look at, other markets, participants, investors at this time. What's going on there?
A little over a week after that Black Monday, where we saw Japanese markets all but crash, we're getting some good news from Japan, proving that the economy there is generally doing pretty good. GDP growth came in stronger than expected. Consumer spending is up. Of course, last week's trouble was after the Bank of Japan had raised interest rates for the first time in ages, and no further raises are now planned. As for the rest of the world, instead of the usual batch of economic data, we're seeing more and more quarterly quarterly numbers coming out today, among many others from US retail giant Walmart and from China's Alibaba. And those are likely numbers people are looking at.
All right, Lars, thank you so much for that update. We'll do it again tomorrow. So just before we head to the UK, we'd like to tell you, you might have been seeing the information and reports about Guarantee Trust Bank going on everywhere and the threats. Well, they have sent a release to clarify what's going on, and say a clarification on news reports regarding the bank's web domain and customer data. Well, they are saying that there have been isolated incidents of attempts to compromise their website domain, and they would like to assure all customers and stakeholders that the bank's website has not been cloned and that they do not store customer information on their website. As such, there's been no instance of compromise of customer data. That's from Guarantee Trust Bank. Just following some of those news, been making the rounds since last night. I'm sure you bumped into it on social media, and they are trying to clarify what they know about the situation. Now we head to the UK. Now, a bit of good news for the UK. We see GDP growing 0.6% in the first quarter. I wonder if that's really good news. Juliana would help us to situate that. Hi, Juliana. Good afternoon. Well, I should tell you good news. Inflation dropped for the first time in 19 months, and we're so glad about that.
Oh. Yeah, that is phenomenal news. And hopefully those prices start trickling down, because that's what's important, right, Innie? We talk about this data all the time, and it typically only involves the ruling class. It's when it starts trickling down to us mere mortals that we can start celebrating. But you were quite right in saying that this is good news for the UK economy, particularly for the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. This morning, the Office for National Statistics put out data for Q2 in the UK GDP, and it's risen. It's risen by 0.6%. This obviously follows the 0.7% uptick at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year. So this is 2 successive quarters of growth. And why this is so significant is because, of course, at the end of 2023, Britain entered a shallow recession. And this was despite all of the initiatives and the measures that were put in place by the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt. So it's quite interesting, although Sir Keir Starmer, of course, being the new Prime Minister, will take all of the glory from this data. Of course, it certainly belongs to the previous administration, right? But this is good news going forward, because we know that there is going to be a first budget by Rachel Reeves sometime in the next couple of weeks. And there were fears about what would be in this budget, because the last statement she gave to Parliament before they broke for recess was that there was over £21 billion of an overspend. In fact, Conservative MPs have been on the British airwaves this morning saying that the fact that the economy has grown so much basically trashes everything that Rachel Reeves has had to say about how the administration handled the economy. No surprises that the dominant service sector was the shining light amongst all of the sectors. Production and construction slipped 0.1%. Innie, on your show, we discussed extensively Swiftonomics. For Swifties, that's Taylor Swift, for those who are still living underground, who don't know her. She was in the UK in the summer. That really lifted up the economy because people spent thousands of pounds to go and see her, as well as the Euro 2024. Of course, Britain is the birthplace of football, and England got all the way to the final, so the pubs were full, and that has really pushed up this GDP data.
Well, good news. More events in the UK then. That will also, lift the services sector and trail into the GDP. But let's look at investor sentiment at this time.
Mixed reactions on the FTSE at intraday. The all-share is actually down. It's down by 0.03%, but the FTSE 100 is up, the blue chip index, by 0.04%, and the FTSE 250, that's also down by 0.28%. In the currencies market, the British pound is trading up against the US dollar by 0.25%. That's one of the reasons why the FTSE is weighing low. It's also up against the euro by 0.26% and up against the Japanese yen by 0.26% at intraday.
Thank you so much, Juliana, and enjoy the rest of your day. Let's discuss copper now, and that's in our commodities segment with Halima Adediran. Well, good news. That looks like we're flipping the times now. We see a situation where copper is reducing in price from about £5.11 to £4. And we know what that does. It's raw material for a whole lot of things, especially in the real estate and telecommunications and transportation. Let's see if this will affect anything in Nigeria. Hi, Halima. Good afternoon. Well, this is good news, but we don't know how or when it will translate, to some realities here in Nigeria.
Well, good afternoon, Nini. Thanks for having me. Okay, so what we are seeing right now in the copper market globally is a decline in the price, and this is because of the glut that has been occurring in the past few months. And if you look at Chile, Chile is has the largest mine for copper in the world. And presently, we'll see that there is a union strike in Chile, which could affect the supply of copper globally. If we look back in time, we will see that this occurred in 2017 and also in May 2024. And when that occurred, we saw a spike in the price of copper globally. And this is likely to occur too if the strike continues. But coming down to Nigeria, we've not seen the effect of the decrease in the price of copper globally because of the exchange rate depreciation. Though the price has declined, but the rate of depreciation of the naira too has nullified the gain we were supposed to see as a country in the price of copper. And so we are paying more, despite the fact that the price is low in the global market. And Nigeria also is an exporter of copper. We import copper, and we also export carbon and cable, and we import cable as well. So this will be a mixed reaction or mixed implication for Nigeria in terms of exports. We might see an increase in our export earning if this strike continues, which means the price of copper will increase in the global market. But if we come down to the price of cable, we are likely to see an upsurge if the price continues. But if the price and the strike is called off in the nearest time, we will see that the price of cable will continue to drop in the country, and it will affect the housing and communication sector positively. The inflation number that just came out recently, a few hours ago, we will see that the contribution of housing and utility to the overall headline inflation has declined compared to what we had in June. Though this is a point data, but it is pointing to a very positive note that we could see an improvement in our housing sector and even in the housing pricing in the near term in Nigeria.
Yeah, well, I want to believe you when you say the near term, but we do know that thing about policy lag and all of that. But there's also another challenge, which is the border issue between Zambia and Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, we know Zambia has shut its borders against DR Congo, and Congo is a major producer of copper, and it passes it through Zambia. So this, of course, is also affecting supply.
Yeah. So if we look at Congo took over Peru in 2023. Their copper production increased to 2.8 million tons, and higher than what Peru had that year. So DRC is now the second largest in the world. And so the retaliation, the ban on DRC copper movement through Zambia is like a retaliation trade tension, because last month, I think DRC placed a ban on beverages and drinks from Zambia. So it's like a retaliation from Zambia to now place a ban on copper movement, because the trailer and all the production from DRC passes through Zambia, which is like a movement from that country to regional ports. So this could affect the supply we are going to see for copper in the near term also, if the trade tension is not calmed. But I think we should see a positive direction, because the talk between the two countries is likely pointing to a good note. So it's not likely to affect the price of copper in the global market as expected.
Okay, but so with putting all of this together, what's the forecast for the price and supply of copper?
Okay, so for the supply of copper in Chile, apart from the mine, there is an increase in investment for mine generally. So for the supply side, that is going to give an increase. So if we look at China, China is the largest consumer of copper in the world, and their Belt and Road Initiative, which has drastically increased, we will see that soup will increase the consumption of copper, not only in Asia, in other parts of the world generally. So these two are going to weigh on demand side and on the supply side. So, but we are likely going to see an increase in the price of copper, because to invest in mine takes a lot of preparation and fund. But in terms of demand could increase because of the investment we are seeing in road construction, manufacturing, especially from Asia to other parts of the world. So that could weigh on the increase in supply. So the increase in demand is likely to weigh on the increase in supply in copper. So we are likely to see an upsurge in the price of copper in the global market.
Yeah, and well, eventually that will now trickle down to Nigeria, taking away that optimism that you shared earlier. But thank you so much, Halima Adediro, for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Other issues around Africa. In Zimbabwe, the country is in the process of introducing computerized and online border management systems at all entry points, and this is to enhance efficiency, reduce errors, minimize human interaction, and curb potential corruption. Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage Minister Kezembe, who visited the Immigration Department at Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport to assess the progress of the initiative. According to the minister, he highlights the integrated computerized system, which includes the Civil Registry, Zimbabwe Republic Police, and the Immigration Department, is nearly complete. And the online border management system has already been implemented at the airports, which most hardware in place, and the system operational, significantly reducing queues at arrivals and departures. The new system matches travelers' faces with their passport details to ensure accuracy and security. The minister is expressing satisfaction with the progress so far, confirms that the system will be rolled out across all border posts, with completion expected by the end of 2024. Let's head to crypto space now and see what's going on there. An interesting story that I saw was a Nigerian activist battling for Bitcoin rights. We'll talk about that, but let's look at the numbers, see what Bitcoin looks like this afternoon. I believe it's in the red. Yeah, there you have it. It's in the red. Dropped from the 61,000 that we had yesterday and earlier today. Lost almost 4%. And then Ethereum is also in the red. Solana, XRP in the red. Most of the coins are in the red this afternoon. Let's have Rume Ofi now joining us to tell us perhaps what's driving this sentiment in the market. Hi, Rume. Good afternoon. What's going on? This is a very sharp movement from what we had this time yesterday.
Good afternoon, Ini. Nice to see you once more again. The truth is that the market is not sure what is going on. And when the market is not sure, a couple of things happen, and that's what you're seeing now. Some persons are of the opinion that, the Fed is going to hike rate. Some of us are of the opinion that it might not be possible. So the macroeconomy is affecting a whole lot of things. Geopolitical crisis right there. You see the threat from Iran to Israel, and a couple of uncertainties around the U.S. economy, which is a driving force, considering the fact that the ETFs are here and it's a very big market. I think about $17.5 billion has been recorded so far.
But Rume, I don't know. I thought we had a bit of certainty now. Yesterday, CPI from the U.S. came and it came lower than 3%. So I thought we're on track for that rate cut, by September. I think they're pricing about 75% possibility of it.
Yes, but the truth is that the Fed's intention to cut rate, it is not certain yet. You can hear from Jerome Powell always say that they need to be very reliant on data, and this data that are coming are not exactly hitting the point. In fact, the retail sales data just came up around the jobless claim just really came out a few minutes ago. I think about 227. That's against the estimate of 237. Someone will just see it and say, okay, peradventure, that means you step in the right direction, but it's not moving significantly. It's not something that they need to rush. You understand that before now, the Fed have actually made mistake of calling the inflation transitory, and you don't expect them to make another mistake considering the fact that the US election is here, and that can be used against them most likely. So all of these are some of the things that are actually putting speculators to make this indecisive decisions. And we will forget the fact that crypto is still a risky asset right about now. So people will most likely focus on a couple of other things rather than get into asset like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Over time, we're going to see some rebalancing, but for now, the fact that the market is uncertain, it only suggests that there's no definite direction, which is not good for the crypto market.
Yeah, well, not good for any market. But let's leave that for a bit and talk about this ex-post of a Nigerian crypto activist. I think it's James Otudor, asking for a right to be able to trade and deal with in Bitcoin. And what's this about? Do you know him?
All right, so it's someone in the Bitcoin community. I think I've come across his work on the internet. But I think that he's making a case as an individual, as a Nigerian, his fundamental human right. Anyone has a right to go to court if they don't feel certain things not comfortable and need a redress. So it's a step in the right direction. For the first time, we've not seen such a thing before. The reason why I'm saying this is that crypto has been more or less attributed to certain way, relegated to the background. Like for something that is in bad taste. People just see crypto as a bad taste because the government is making it look that way. Cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin and crypto and others, are not currencies in the sense that you can go to the market to buy something. It varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Some other jurisdiction is seen as a store of value. And I think that is how we need to look at it so that it doesn't put a threat to the Nigerian state. But players in the industry have been seen to be persecuted for just the fact that they are aligned towards that direction. A lot of accounts have been frozen in recent time. A lot of persons have been arrested in recent time, although there are cases where some bad actors are also involved. But the truth is that in a general sense, the Nigerian state has made crypto to be hostile. We're not even talking about the fact that one of the Binance executive is in custody for forever. He's been there, and that doesn't make us look right, considering the fact that we want investors to come into this country. So it's going to court seek a redress. I think it's seeing the president, the attorney general of the federation, and as well as the CBN governor, as then EFCC and a couple of other agencies like the NCC and NIDA as well. So we need to start seeing things as a country that wants the younger generations to embrace technology. There are ways to manage all of these things. There are ways to be able to put regulations around these things. This is a clear case of regulation by strangulation. It's a clear case of regulation by strangulation, and it doesn't tell well for the entire industry.
But Ruben, don't forget that the government also makes it known that they're doing this to protect the investing public here in Nigeria. And as you also said, there's also been stories of bad actors in the space. I think there's even one. Well, I don't want to go into that one about the protests and all of that, but perhaps we should find a balance between the regulations and the need to actually have this space, still functional in the country.
Ini, I'm surprised people always hit more on the demerit, the bad issues. Look at countries like the US, for example. The Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is playing a huge role. You can imagine it for the first time, a former president of the United States, which is the presidential candidate of the Republican Party, went to a Bitcoin conference. That should send a signal to us in Nigeria that there's something we need to look at in this. Kamala Harris is actually also looking towards the direction of a proper regulation in crypto, despite the fact that she was involved in this current administration of Joe Biden, and it looks to some people that the crypto was not giving enough breathing space in the US. But some redress are coming. We're going to see next week, which is going to be outlining some of the things that she's going to be doing. And there's a coalition around her, Harry for Crypto, which is already putting things together for a campaign team to understand what crypto is exactly and what the blockchain industry is exactly. I know we're going to get to a time where crypto is going to be discussed in the National Assembly. But for now, it's really shocking that the world is moving in the direction of how technology can be used to better the lives and engage young people. And Nigeria is not moving that way. It's quite unfortunate and painful sometimes. But I think it's also going to play a role in the future in our elections, where presidential candidates are going to tell us what they think about the blockchain industry, the cryptocurrencies, and a couple of other things happening right here now in Nigeria.
All right, Rube, I guess that's why here on channels we're still having this conversation. So, we can always keep this issue. But thank you so much for sharing your time and thoughts with us this afternoon, Rumelfi.
Thank you very much, Ini. Always a pleasure.
All right, just before we go, other headlines today is that Peppercoin whale sells $4 million amid market downturn. There you have it. And then Binance is set to pay about $1.7 million to Brazilian regulator. You want to get the details of this and perhaps chew on it. So that's the much we can take on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated today. Again, we have a final one tomorrow, Friday. Some things are cooking. You don't want to miss it. So I'll see you tonight for the stock market report, and then we'll repeat it again, 10 a.m. We'll have fresh conversations. I'm Ini John McCoy. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.